got to go play at Iowa State, Division I football. The twins got to go to Southwest Baptist. You guys were there at the same time, right?
I was there
for the first couple years.
Probably the hardest thing. I was there with them for a year before I left to go to West Georgia.
Okay. So they did kind of, follow your example and make sure that they were taking care of business off the field, and then the business on the field always takes care of itself.
For sure.
If you can play, you can play, but if you don't have any grades, it doesn't matter how good you are at that point.
Not a lick.
I know, you were a guy that always took care of that stuff, and so they kind of did follow that example.
Yeah, they did. And the thing that they did is they followed the example, and then they blazed their own trail too, which is always neat. Even for the twins, they're, you think the exact same person, but they all three individually did things well on the field, off the field, academically, and even to see them do things better. Brandon was probably a better athlete than I. That's probably one of the only times you're going to ever hear me say that. But he probably was a better athlete.
We can edit that out.
They were better in the classroom than I was. You know what I mean? Those guys graduate with over 3.0 GPAs in college, something that is a big deal, that's extremely exciting to look at. So everybody kind of had an individual path that they took. But it does feel good that hopefully I was a positive example for them as well.
And that speaks to, to also how wonderful, your parents are. All you guys finished school, all of you earned scholarships at the NCAA level. All of you finished college and all those things. That's so important and so key, how the example that, your parents were to you guys, and then I know to some other young men too that were, kind of in the twins age area, that maybe didn't have that figure at home, due to whatever was going on in the home.
And that's it's just a blessing is all I can say, and all I can think about, to just be in that position where we feel like God has, I know my father was placed in certain young men's lives for a reason. Because like you said, I'll have guys that I grew up with that'll say, man, you know my dad, and they'll say, man, Big Rick, he be on me. He motivate me. He do all of these things, and for it to kind of just trickle throughout the men in our family. But it also took a strong mama as well to be in there with all them boys and all those men. And so, man, I just feel like we've been blessed throughout. Our story continues to be written, and we just hope that we can continue to impact, not just through football, but through life, and hopefully the way we go. Like you said, football is just a tool that I get to use to impact the men that I have the opportunity to do.
Yeah, and I know you're going to continue to do that. So, off the big bowl win, you've kind of had some time off. I'm sure, you leave tomorrow, so
yes,
I'm
sir.
sure next week, recruiting, getting started.
So next week we're back in the office. It's still the dead period, NCAA wise.
Oh, that's right.
So we're not allowed to go out and in-person recruit. We'll start to evaluate some of our 2021 guys. We signed, I think we signed 24, 25 at the early signing period. And so, we're in a position right now where we're in a pretty good spot. We'll have some guys that come in those last couple visit weekends, but for the most part, we're starting to transition and get ready for our 21 class.
Okay, so pretty much got your class of 20 guys, and as most, with the early signing period, that's changed the way things are done. At the Division I level, most of your schools are going to be pretty much done with your 20 for now.
Yeah,
you're most of them.
Yeah, and we're in a good spot because some of those guys are preferred walk-on guys. Some of those guys are scholarship guys, so we'll still have some room where we'll be able to add to that class. But we feel really good about the guys that we were able to sign in that first period, and looking forward to finishing up.
Okay. We do have some high school players, athletes that watch the show and listen to the show. So, they hear me at Shawnee Mission East. They probably get tired of hearing me talk about what it takes to be a college athlete and the difference. So, coming from a college coach, Division I, bowl-winning coach, what kind of athletes, what kind of things do they need to do to be eligible?
Well, without me going into detail. You know, we got to dance around NCAA regulations and stuff. The biggest thing, you got to take care of your business as a young man. And when I say that, that means academically putting yourself in a position where you're not just getting by in class. You know, you're being successful in class. You're earning, you know, the GPA requirements that you have, the NCAA test score requirements, SAT test score, ACT test score requirements that you need to have. Also being a person that is willing to do more. You know, I think it's important that you're not a young man that's going to do just enough, because if you're going to do just enough in the classroom, you're going to do just enough on the field. You know, we always talk about being able to trust the guy next to you on fourth down. You know, if I can't trust you any other time, why would I be able to trust you during that period? And you know, we look for guys that love the game as well. You know, we look for guys that think about it outside of when they're playing it. You know, they're doing things to keep themselves in shape, whether it be another sport, whether it be focusing on that particular sport in football. You know, not a guy that just excited about it when August comes. You know what I mean? Because it's more than that when you get to college. You know, you got a full year of work, and so the dedication and the time that we put in last spring, over the summer, into the season, when you win that game on December 21st, when you win that ball game, man, you're like, man, you know why it's worth it now. You know what I mean? You know why you're willing to do it and push that extra and sweat a little bit more and be in that heat and, you know, just go through all of those different things. And even if you didn't, let's say we didn't win that game, that doesn't mean that it's any less important by any means. It doesn't mean that it was not worth it. It just means that maybe I need to work a little harder, do a little bit more. And so when I'm talking to high school guys and when we're recruiting, you know, first thing I'm going to talk to them about is their academics. Where are they at there? The second thing I want to talk to them about is what kind of person they are with their family at the school. You know, I'll talk to the counselor. We'll talk to the secretary, whoever it may be, to see, all right, what kind of person is Gary Carl? You know what I mean? And then lastly, who are you as a player? Because hopefully you have some intangibles. You do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be there to talk to you or be recruiting you. And with those intangibles, we're going to be able to teach you what we want you to be able to do. And I feel that way. You know, most coaches do. You know, maybe it's a arrogance. You know, hopefully it's not looked at that. But I feel like I can teach you what I want you to do. I feel like I can teach you what I need you to know. But you got to be willing to do that work and to meet it halfway. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know you talked about the intangibles and some of those things. I know there's a high school job open, you know, here in the area that has not been successful, but a friend of mine, you know, and talking to him, he's like, well, why haven't guys won there? And I said, well, I really don't feel like they've had the buy-in. I feel like they have enough athletes that they can get some things done, but they haven't had the right guy. And I think the right guy is necessary anywhere. You know, you've got to get, because like we talked about before, you got to get the buy-in. You got to get those kids to believe in you first.
For sure.
And then once they believe in you, then, you know, they'll run through that wall. They'll do whatever they need to do. It's not the work ethic can be taught. I mean, you know that. You learn that. And so, you know, it's going to be interesting to kind of see how all that unfolds too. But, you know, the coaching carousel.
Oh, yeah.
At the high school level. Yeah.
It's that time of year everywhere, man, from the NFL to college to high school.
No big moves for you, though, so far.
Man, nothing that I know of. No, nothing that I know of. Man, we just, you know, like I said, we stay
Cowboys.
faithful.
Yeah, they might have an opening up here.
I heard the Dallas Cowboys job will be open eventually.
Yeah.
And you know, if Gary over there does hashtag on your name, we'll fire him. We'll fire him.
No.
Man, I try to stay out of that stuff.
We'll ban him from social media.
There you go. I try to stay out of all of it as much as I can. Obviously, you work, and you just hope that you do the best job that you can. Not hope, you work to do the best job that you can. And, you know, if blessings come your way, you know, you want to make sure that you attack them and evaluate them the correct way. But you know, I can't hashtag anybody because I don't want to be in that. I don't want to be on that other side of it, man. I you know, as a coach, you just, you know, you don't want to be in that position if you can help it. You know,
We were talking about Gary, not you. Because Gary and his hashtag fire Jason Garrett.
10 years, diehard Cowboys fan. I've seen enough. And this,
but that just means that with you being in Kansas City, you need to be a Kansas City fan. That's all that means.
well, you see, I'm decked out in Chiefs gear today, so we'll see. I lost a bet, so we're wearing Chiefs gear on the show today. But we get Jason Garrett out of town, maybe Dallas start winning some more games. Still got my cup though.
Get Jerry Jones out of town.
So you guys are gonna, like you said, you've pretty much got your 20 class finished up. Start working on 21. Before you know it, we got the convention coming up here in a couple of weeks. Then you'll be moving on and probably getting ready for spring ball after that.
We will. We'll get ready. We'll start spring ball. We'll finalize a date. But last year we started end of February, beginning of March.
Okay.
We'll probably be around that same period. We finished up by the end of March, and then once you hit about the middle of April, you're in a position where you're able to go back out and start to evaluate the 21 class, so you can see them practice and see them in some situations like that.
Yeah. How big is it? Obviously with recruiting, being able to see guys practice in spring ball at the high school level.
I think
in those states that allow it,
it's a big deal. You can't have any interaction with them outside of the practice, so you can see them, move around. You can see them work out. But I think the big thing for you is just getting a fundamental knowledge of who that young man is. When he's in that situation, because just like for us, spring practice is almost like in season. You're learning more of the scheme and growing some of those guys that are still young in the program. But you're competing and trying to compete like you got a game on Saturday. You know what I mean? And so you get to see guys in that situation. It also helps because you can't see everybody play in the fall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We only have so many days that we're able to evaluate in game days in the fall, and so you don't get to see everybody. So when you can see some of those guys, in the spring, in the states that have spring ball, man, it helps a ton. And gives you a good idea who they are, so that when you see them being successful in the fall, I knew he was going to be doing that based off what I saw in the spring. So,
so Missouri, Kansas, get with the program. Let's get some spring football up here, man. Come on, killing me. I can't. Got regulations on what I can do. Missouri's gotten better with the summer stuff. Since we were, with the 25 contact days and all that, but. It helps with recruiting, and a guy out of Kansas City that's getting a lot of headlines right now is Isaiah Simmons.
Oh, there no doubt.
I'm sure.
Ball player, man.
Yeah, that kid. His senior year was my first year at Shawnee Mission East when he was at Olathe North, and he pretty much single-handedly beat us in the quarterfinals that night. He was running all over the field, making every tackle, and he just lined. We were flex bone then. And, they lined him up at safety in about 12 yards. And, he just came downhill whichever way we ran the option.
He's unreal.
He took a kickback and ran a bubble screen. The bubble screen was on our sideline. And it was one of those. It was right in front of me. And I thought our safety had a good angle on him. And he just hit another gear. And I was like, none of our kids have that gear. So, good for him.
Hey, it's a lot of special talent, man, here in the area as well as throughout. So.
Yeah.
That's the neat thing to always get to see, especially when it's from home. You like to see guys be successful.
Darren Sproles was a guy that was, he's around your age, and so he would have been making the buzz,
big time
when you were coming out and all those things. We got some pretty good players here in Kansas City.
Oh, I agree.
I agree. We're trying to, get the word out on that. Let these high schools know, especially MU, KU, and K State, hey, let's recruit some of these local kids, man. I'm sure there's, some local kids out there in Virginia you guys take a look at just because they're in your back door.
Oh, you got to take care of home.
Yeah.
Wherever you're at, in my opinion, you got to take care of your home. And so, Virginia is extremely important to us from a recruiting standpoint. We're going to have other places that we can go because we've been successful recruiting as a staff, in different places in the Southeast and throughout the nation. But, if you're not taking care of Virginia, it's tough. And then to see those guys that are 4-year guys, our running back this year, the 4-year kid from Virginia, and to see him, play the way that he did down the stretch for us, play the way he did in the bowl game, his mom be there, his high school coach be at the bowl game. I mean,
yeah,
it don't get any better than that. So you got to always make sure you take care of your backyard. I would agree.
I mean, recruiting is all about relationships too, not